Early voting is already underway for Tuesday's primary election in Illinois, with important contests all the way up to party nominations for president. We'll have more on that soon, but first, no local race is more hotly contested than the battle for Cook County State's Attorney. Incumbent Anita Alvarez is in the fight of her political life.
I'm running for re-election for Cook County State's Attorney because it's been my passion for the last 29 years. It continues to be my passion, and there's so much more work that we continue to do, that we need to do, and I believe I'm the best person to do that.
In this campaign commercial, Alvarez points to her experience, but the battle for her job hinges on another video, this one. Alvarez has come under withering criticism for her handling of the Laquan McDonald shooting. The white police officer who shot the African-American teenager was not charged with murder for more than a year, and only when the video was about to be released. Chicago Sun-Times columnist Laura Washington believes the McDonald case is the driving force in this election.
I think it put the race on the map. I think that Anita Alvarez was headed for an easy re-election campaign without Laquan McDonald. It created such an uproar, people calling for her head, and that turned the race around and made it a real contest.
Alvarez is competing against two other lawyers, Kim Fox and Donna Moore. In their ad campaigns, both candidates are attacking the way Alvarez handled the McDonald case.
When State's Attorney Anita Alvarez did nothing about this murder, she proved our justice system is broken. Kim Fox is the only candidate who has what it takes to fix it.
As gun violence rages on our streets and misconduct plagues the state's attorney's office, Anita Alvarez must go. Two challengers, one clear choice. Only one has the experience to restore our trust, Donna Moore.
In the most recent televised debate, Alvarez defended her investigation of the Laquan McDonald shooting and bitterly attacked the campaign ads of her rivals.
For anyone to suggest that me, as a mother of 4 children, would look at a video of a young man being murdered and do nothing is just the absolute untruth. For anybody to do that, they want to score political points.
Kim Fox has also emphasized her personal story.
The daughter of a teenage single mother, a child of Cabrini Green.
Growing up poor in a housing project before working her way up to the prosecutor's office. Fox then served as chief of staff to Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle. Now Fox's former boss and the Cook County Democratic Party are backing her bid to unseat Alvarez.
We got to change our criminal justice system. We have an opportunity in this election to transform it by electing Kim Fox. Please welcome her.
I would simply say that I've been a lawyer for almost 20 years, and I spent 15 years practicing in courtrooms every single day, dealing with some of the most difficult crimes.
But Fox's campaign has also triggered criticism from those who say she lacks experience as a prosecutor and would be influenced by powerful political backers such as Preckwinkle.
I'm working for the people of Cook County. I'm working for those communities who have lost faith in a criminal justice system that has failed them.
The other candidate, Donna Moore, is a former federal prosecutor and private attorney. With far less campaign money than Alvarez and Fox, Moore has been working L-stops to raise her profile.
Hi, good morning. I'm running for Cook County State's Attorney.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Moore has never run for a major elected office before, but the Chicago lawyer says she is working hard to convince voters that she is the only candidate free from strong political ties.
I am independent, and it is hard to fight the machine, but I believe that voters are sick and tired of having candidates forced down their throat that aren't qualified to do the job. I'm ready to do the job of being Cook County State's Attorney, and I'm ready to be accountable to the people of Cook County.
In this three-way primary election, voter turnout is critical.
I think if you have a high turnout, that is favorable to Anita Alvarez's opponents, because that means there's a lot of interest in this race, there's a lot of passion, and that might work against her. I think her opponents, her opponent particularly, Kim Fox, would be looking for a high turnout among African-American voters.
In the latest Tribune poll, Alvarez leads with 34%. Kim Fox at 27%, Donna Moore getting 12%, and a whopping 26% undecided. And joining us tonight are Steve Edwards, Executive Director for the University of Chicago Institute of Politics, Paula Thornton Greer, Vice President of External Affairs for the Chicago Urban League, and Nick Kaczarubis, Associate Teaching Professor for the School of Public Service at DePaul University, and welcome everyone. So we have this whopping huge 26% undecided in the Cook County's race. Steve, does that suggest this race is up for grabs?
Absolutely, and I think what you're looking at right now is a dynamic in a lot of races, actually, where the undecideds are still quite high. Even in the presidential race in Illinois, on the Republican side, there are nearly 20% of voters in a campaign that's been going on for months that are undecided. So it's an opportunity, certainly, for all of the candidates in the state's attorney's race to continue to hammer home their messages. Anita Alvarez has a lot of funding, as does Kim Foxx, so that's helping them in these final days as they try to define both who they are in this race and also identify the voters that they need to get to the polls.
And so, Paula, we heard that turnout might be very critical in this race. Do you agree with that?
Oh, I absolutely agree, and it's something that I'm concerned about. I think there's a level of enthusiasm that goes along with the races here in Illinois and also nationally. I would like to see a high voter turnout. I'd like to make sure that the enthusiasm from our young voters translates into showing up at the polls, and that people of color show up in mass as well. Absent that, I'm afraid that we are not going to see a sea change, let alone a change of anything.
And in terms of the African-American voters, do you think that's going to help Kim Foxx in this election?
You know, I think it depends. My hope is that all voters, not just African-American voters, are looking at the issues that matter to individuals, to communities, to the city and the state as a whole. So I think that there is a certain affinity for candidates because they have been talking about the issues, but this certainly will not be determined on the basis of black or white.
Nick, we saw in the setup report there that Anita Alvarez is lashing back at her opponents for, in her words, exploiting the Laquan McDonald video. Is that a fair point, or is that politics as usual?
I think it's politics as usual, and I think we can expect that in this. This is the first election we've had since those videos became public, and so this is the first opportunity that the public has had, and very vehemently she's been called to resign, so is Mayor Rahm Emanuel. So here's the first electoral opportunity voters have to make their voice known, but it is a heated race, and we're going to see where that turns out.
The use of that video, what do you think?
I think the use of that video is, you can't avoid that video.
So it's appropriate.
Right. I think, let's be clear. I mean, absent that video, this would be an entirely different race in my estimation. There are so many things that are attached to that video. It is not simply about the incident or the response. It is this interconnectivity of issues that surround why the incident in that video happened in the first place.
Yeah.
One of the go ahead, Steve.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, there's no question that this is the defining issue in this race, and it's not just Laquan McDonald. It's 8 years that Anita Alvarez has had in office, and a number of other cases that have actually brought scrutiny, including the David Kochman case, the Rakia Boyd case. So that's what's firing up a large portion of the Kim Foxx supporters in an effort to really drive change and to lead to a turnover in that office.
The third candidate here is Donna Moore, and her main selling point seems to be that she would be independent after raising concerns about perhaps Kim Foxx being beholden to Tony Preckwinkle. Is this a position that should be independent of this kind of politics, or are we asking too much in Chicago?
Well, I think personally, I would say that it should be independent. You would want, I think, your state's attorney to kind of be this independent race, but unfortunately, the way our system is set up and historically, the Cook County state's attorney has been a very political office, so as much as I believe that Donna Moore has a great position and a great message, I'm not sure if that really, at the end of the day, will play into the actual votes that turn out.
But you know, Nick, really quickly, I think what voters are more concerned about this cycle is not so much the independence from partisan politics, but how independent the prosecutors in that office are from other elements of law enforcement, from police, from the judicial system. Are they actually working on behalf of voters' interests and citizens' interests in a way that's fair and above board and freed from the kinds of influences that those tight relationships often suggest?
Absolutely. I mean, we've heard a lot over the course of the past couple of months, particularly since the Laquan McDonald video, about this word accountability, right? So I think that people are looking for candidates who can speak to accountability, define it, and say how they are going to act in accordance with shared accountability. You know, and that just goes back to the issues at hand. I think if candidates could talk about the systemic issues that exist in the city that exist on a national level, they could dig down, we could begin to dig down to the root of these issues. And I think that's what leaves some people sort of ambiguous right now about whether or not they are going to vote, and if so, for whom.
Well, but I also think that there's a deeper issue, too, in this whole electoral cycle about accountability and the idea of placing blame and voter anger. And I think there is a faction of saying, you know, Anita Alvarez should be held accountable for these things, and maybe there's another opportunity. So I agree that there's deep-seated issues and an opportunity to look at the systematic change, but there's also the voter anger piece that has to be taken.